The rain hammered against my apartment window, the rhythmic drumming a constant reminder of the storm raging outside. I always loved the sound of rain, it was soothing and peaceful. But that night, it felt different. It was 2023, and I had just moved into a new apartment in New York City. The city was alive with its usual hustle and bustle, but the weather had driven most people indoors, leaving the streets eerily quiet. I had just settled into my new place, and was excited for a quiet night in. I made myself a cup of tea, curled up on the couch with a book, and let the storm serenade me. The apartment was small but cozy, a perfect haven from the chaotic world outside. The only downside was the old, creaky closet in my bedroom. It was one of those deep, dark closets that seemed to swallow light. I had stuffed it with boxes and clothes, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it was hiding something more. As the night wore on, I grew tired and decided to head to bed. I brushed my teeth, changed into my pajamas, and climbed under the covers, the rain still pounding against the window. I reached over to turn off the bedside lamp, when I heard a noise, an almost imperceptible rustling coming from the closet. I paused, listening intently. It could have been the wind, or maybe even a mouse. Trying to shake off the unease, I turned off the light and closed my eyes. Minutes later, I heard it again. This time, it was louder, like fabric brushing against something solid. My heart started to race. I sat up in bed, staring at the closet door, which was slightly ajar. I always closed it before going to bed. The gap was small, but it was enough to make me uneasy. "Get a grip," I muttered to myself. "It's just your imagination." I got up and walked slowly toward the closet, every creak of the floorboard making my anxiety spike. I reached out and grabbed the doorknob, hesitating for a moment before yanking it open. The closet was dark and cluttered, just as I had left it. I rummaged through the clothes and boxes, finding nothing out of the ordinary. Sighing with relief, I shut the door firmly and returned to bed. Just as I was drifting off to sleep, I heard it again. This time, it was a low whisper, barely audible over the rain. My blood ran cold. I strained to listen, my heart pounding in my chest. There it was again, clearer now, a soft, sinister whispering coming from the closet. Summoning all my courage, I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I approached the closet cautiously, the whispering growing louder with each step. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob. I flung the door open and shone the light inside, revealing nothing. The whispering stopped abruptly, leaving me in deafening silence. I backed away, my breath coming in short gasps. As I turned to return to bed, the whispering started again, this time right behind me. I spun around, but the closet was still empty. Panic surged through me. I slammed the closet door shut and leaned against it, trying to calm my racing heart. Suddenly, I felt a cold hand on my shoulder. I froze, unable to move. The whispering was right in my ear now, clear and malevolent. "You shouldn't have come here," it said. I bolted for the door, flinging it open and racing down the hallway. I didn't stop until I was outside, the rain drenching me as I called a friend to come get me. I never went back to that apartment. I told the landlord I was leaving and didn't care about the deposit. To this day, I don't know what was in that closet, and I don't want to know. The memory of that rainy night in New York haunts me, a chilling reminder that some things are better left unexplored.
It was a quiet evening in Los Angeles, the kind of night where the city's usual hustle and bustle seemed muted by an unseasonably chilly wind. I was home alone, enjoying the rare tranquility. My apartment, a small but cozy one-bedroom on the 3rd floor, felt safe and secluded from the world outside. I had just settled on the couch with a cup of tea and a good book when the first strange noise caught my attention.
At first, I thought it was just the wind rattling the windows. The building was old and the windows often creaked. But this noise was different, a soft, persistent tapping, almost rhythmic. I glanced at the window but saw nothing unusual. Dismissing it, I returned to my book, trying to recapture the calm I'd felt moments before. The tapping grew louder, more insistent. I put the book down and walked over to the window. As I pulled the curtain aside, I saw nothing but the dark alley below, lit by a single flickering street lamp. The wind had picked up, swirling leaves and debris. I shrugged it off and closed the curtain, heading back to my couch. Not 10 minutes later, the tapping resumed, now accompanied by a low, scratching sound. My heart began to race. I grabbed my phone, considering calling someone, but hesitated, not wanting to seem paranoid. Instead, I crept back to the window, moving the curtain aside just enough to peek through. To my horror, I saw a pair of pale, slender hands pressed against the glass. They were clawing at the window, leaving faint, scratchy trails. My breath caught in my throat as I realized the hands didn't belong to anyone standing on the fire escape or any visible ledge. It was as if they were suspended in the air. I stumbled backward, my mind racing with fear. The scratching grew louder, more frantic, as though whatever was outside was desperate to get in. I knew I had to do something, but my body felt paralyzed by terror. With a burst of adrenaline, I grabbed a nearby chair and wedged it under the doorknob, hoping it would provide some measure of protection. The window rattled violently, and then, with a deafening crash, it shattered. Glass flew everywhere, and I ducked, covering my head. When I looked up, I saw the most horrifying sight: a figure, pale and gaunt, crawling through the broken window. Its limbs were long and twisted, moving with an unnatural, jerky motion. Its eyes were hollow, black voids that seemed to absorb all light. I scrambled to my feet and backed away, my mind screaming at me to run. The figure slithered into the room, its movements disjointed and eerie. It let out a low, guttural moan that sent chills down my spine. I dashed for the front door, but the chair I'd wedged there blocked my escape. In my panic, I fumbled with it, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The creature was getting closer, its moans growing louder and more insistent. I could feel its cold, oppressive presence bearing down on me. Finally, I managed to dislodge the chair and flung the door open, bolting into the hallway. I didn't stop running until I reached the stairwell, practically tumbling down the stairs in my desperation to escape. I burst out of the building and into the street, gasping for breath, my mind reeling. I didn't stop running until I reached a well-lit diner several blocks away. I collapsed into a booth, shaking and trying to make sense of what had just happened. The police didn't find anything unusual, just a broken window and a terrified witness. They chalked it up to a break-in attempt, but I knew better. That thing, whatever it was, wasn't human. I never spent another night alone in that apartment, and eventually, I moved away entirely, hoping to leave the nightmare behind. But every time I hear a soft tapping on a window, my heart races, and I'm transported back to that night. I know now that some things in this world can't be explained, and the darkness outside our windows may hide more than we're prepared to face.
I always loved being alone at home. It was my chance to unwind, watch my favorite shows, and not worrying about anything. That evening in 2015 was supposed to be no different. My parents had gone to a wedding in another city, leaving me with the house to myself for the weekend. I was a college sophomore, confident and perfectly fine with being alone. But as night fell, an unsettling feeling began to creep in. I dismissed the eerie sensation as just my imagination running wild. I cooked myself a simple dinner, watched some Netflix, and texted my friends about our plans for the upcoming week. The hours passed quickly, and before I knew it, it was almost midnight. I decided it was time to head to bed. As I was getting ready to sleep, I heard a faint noise. It was a soft, almost imperceptible thud coming from downstairs. I froze, straining to hear any other sounds. After a minute of silence, I convinced myself it was probably just the house settling. Houses make noises, especially at night, right? I went to my bedroom, locked the door, and climbed into bed. Just as I was about to drift off, I heard the noise again. This time, it was louder, more distinct, a deliberate sound, like footsteps. My heart pounded in my chest as I tried to rationalize it. Maybe I left a window open and the wind was causing something to bang around. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. Clutching my phone, I debated whether to call the police. It felt silly. What if it was nothing? I decided to text my best friend, Sarah, instead. She was always up late studying and would surely reply quickly. As I typed out my message, the footsteps became more pronounced, moving through the living room and toward the stairs. I stopped texting and listened, my breath caught in my throat. I could hear the stairs creaking, one by one, as if someone was deliberately taking their time coming up. My bedroom was at the end of the hallway, and with each step, the intruder came closer. I dialed 911, my fingers trembling. But before I hit call, I heard a voice. It was a whisper, soft yet clear. "I know you're here." Panic surged through me. I quietly pressed the call button, my voice barely above a whisper, as I told the dispatcher there was someone in my house. She assured me that officers were on their way, but I knew it would take a few minutes at best. Suddenly, the footsteps stopped right outside my door. I could see the shadow of feet beneath the gap. My heart was pounding so loudly, I was sure the intruder could hear it. Then, the doorknob slowly started to turn. I had locked it, but would that be enough to keep them out? The door rattled as the intruder tried to push it open. "I'm calling the police," I shouted, hoping to scare them off. There was a moment of silence, and then a laugh, a low, chilling laugh that made my blood run cold. The dispatcher stayed on the line, asking me to stay calm and keep talking to her. But all I could think about was the flimsy lock standing between me and whoever was out there. I heard a loud crash downstairs, like glass shattering. The intruder had moved away from my door, perhaps to find another way in or to cause more damage. Moments later, the sound of sirens filled the air, growing louder as they approached. The footsteps retreated quickly down the stairs, and I heard the back door slam open. Relief washed over me when the dispatcher confirmed the police had arrived. They searched the house and found the back door's glass pane shattered, but no one inside. The officers assured me they would patrol the area throughout the night, but the damage was done. My sanctuary was violated, and my sense of safety shattered. To this day, I can't be alone in a house without feeling that familiar chill of fear. The thought of those footsteps, that laugh, still haunts my nights. And every creak or thud sends me back to that terrifying night in 2015, when I was home alone and attacked by an unknown intruder.